I want to start off by asking you this question. You have been someone who has been a very bold supporter of the Trump agenda and everything that he's been doing. I want to ask you how you think things are going. Are they going well? Are you happy with the level of success that you've had in terms of the Congress? Do you believe that you're delivering on his agenda?
That's a long question, but yes, I had a hard time switching from the House to the Senate because I was happy where I was at with the House. I had a very good shot of being able to run for leadership, and in fact, that was already in the works. I was on Intel, loved Intel, but my wife and we had a long discussion because we have 6 kids, and I actually do not want to be an empty nester. I like being a dad, and I like being a husband to my wife. And so being away from hurts. And I was like, we want to be where we can be the most effective. I'm setting that as to answer your question by saying I wouldn't be here if I didn't think we were being effective. What keeps me here right now isn't the title because I care less about it. I'm actually my wife would call me a hermit. I have to be a people's person, but you'll never see me at a reception hanging out, ever. If I'm at a reception, it's because I'm speaking, turn around, and leaving. I like to be busy, but I'm okay being by myself. But the fact that we're being so dominant and winning right now is exciting to me. I think General George, who's a four-star general, outstanding individual. I mean, he's a soldier's general. I mean, he's a warrior. He said it best when we were going through some realignments, with DOD. He came in my office, and I have a good relationship with him. He says, we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity. I mean, this guy's ready to retire. He could retire anytime he wants to. He's 4-star, right? He's as we call in the cattle business, he's short and solid, and so he's ready to go. And he says, what keeps me moving is we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to actually make real changes to America, and the Trump agenda is actually doing that. I mean, we're actually turning the curve. We've cut spending. I'm not trying to get on this political thing, but I mean, we have legitimately cut spending, not this 10-year projection. We're actually cutting spending today. I mean, last month, the Treasury actually brought in more money than it spent, right? The economy's turning. We're cutting the size of government. We're getting away from agencies. Instead of building agencies, we're cutting agencies. I'm sitting on the approach bills. The approach bills isn't adding more report language. We're not adding the size of programs. Every single agency is cutting the size of the agency. We're reducing the size of government. So I think the agenda is moving forward, and we don't fix this, Ben, overnight.
Yeah.
Right. This is way too big to fix overnight. This has to turn slowly, but for the first time. I mean, how long have you been in politics? You didn't have gray in your beard, I promise you. And I'm not even sure you had it. Did you have a beard?
I met Newt Gingrich when I was 12 years old.
Okay, so that tells you didn't have facial hair. And for the first time, actually, I'll say first time since Newt was Speaker. So that was 96?
94.
94,
95.
94, 95, right. So the first time since let's say 95, 96, we're actually pivoting and getting government starting working for the people again, and it excites me.
So you said something to me the very first time that I met you down in Oklahoma about how eager you are to get out of town. That you figure it out. The quickest way to the airport, right after the last vote, that kind of thing. So you're not someone who loves Washington and the swamp.
Concrete jungle is what I call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That swamp is very powerful.
Yeah.
And it drains a lot of people who come to it. Do you think that the difference between the first Trump term and this Trump term is how he has essentially approached the swamp and dealt with the fact that last time around he didn't really know how it was going to kind of come after him and drain him and throw all these roadblocks into his agenda, and this time he just knows better?
Yes, and his approach is different. So I think when President Trump first came into office, he didn't have a clue about politics, right?
And he
Just same
admits
thing.
that.
Same thing with me.
Yeah.
When I came to politics,
Yeah.
I came straight out of the
You,
business
you
world.
came
straight
straight from business into it, and actually, I mean, similarly motivated by frustrations.
100%. And so when you first get here, you kind of have a tendency to lose your way because it's so much different than business. And so when you first get up here, you think, okay, I've got to play this game, because when you get into a new business, you got to be better at everybody at the business. And so you get into the political aspect of it, and you're whacking down fires, and you're chasing things that don't matter, and you're getting distracted, because that's what happens up here. You get distracted. And that first 4 years, he didn't know what he needed. He didn't know the personnel he needed around him. He didn't know how to navigate the halls. He didn't know where the bathrooms were. He didn't know where the tunnels were. He had no. He thought he was just going to come in here and like he's taking over another business.
Yeah.
It doesn't work quite that way. And so his approach this time is he's had 4 years to sit and think about how he's going to handle it different. And his approach now is he's not playing politics. He has thrown the politic playbook, threw it out the window, and he says, I'm doing it off relationships. And so he's got the right people, as he calls a central casting crew around him. He's built the right relationships in both chambers, and he's just blowing through, and he's not getting distracted. He's not playing whack-a-mole. He's not chasing every little bad story. He's staying focused on agenda, and he hasn't wavered.
So talk to me a little bit about that cast of characters, because I know that you know several of them personally and have for a while. Obviously, we're both friends with Tulsi Gabbard.
Right.
We both have known J.D. Vance, in certain contexts and that kind of thing.
Well, he gave me a hard time last night.
Oh, really?
Oh gosh.
What happened?
He had to cast the deciding vote last night, right?
Yep.
Well, I was also scheduled to be on Hannity. And so in between votes, I had to come to Hannity, and so when I get back, he's waiting on me because he has to cast the last vote. Right.
Yeah,
so he's waiting on me, and I came, blowing in, and he was on the floor, and he just looked at me like this, and I said, man, I'm sorry, I was doing Hannity. Yeah, and he goes, yeah, I had nothing else to do.
Yeah.
He busted my chops for a while.
So you know these people.
Yeah.
How significant do you think it is that you now have a cast of people around the president who are in your generation, who are younger? Like the first time he came in, he brought in all these old folks who, gray hairs, who were, he thought of them as looking like the part, and,
right.
generals and people like that who he put into different roles. This time around, there is, it's a youth movement. Effectively, it's
right.
all these Xers and millennials who he brought in and put in significant positions. How much of a difference does that make?
Huge, because what he did is the first time he came in, he didn't know what he didn't know, so he handled it, as I said, Ben, in a business perspective. If you don't know your business, you bring people in that know the business. Yeah. So you got to surround yourself with people that know how to navigate the halls. This time he knew how to navigate the halls, and he brought in fresh meat, looking at it from a different perspective. That old guard is part of the problem. The old guard is what got us here. Yeah. So when he started bringing in Pete Hegseth, he started bringing in Ratcliffe, he started bringing in Tulsi Gabbard, he started bringing in Dan Driscoll. You could just go through the list, right? Bobby Kennedy, right? When he started bringing people that were outside the norm, if you're going to change D.C., you got to bring new people in that want change. And it was a resistance. He took a shot at trying to get the hardest one to get through. Secretary Hegseth.
Yeah.
And the old, theory around here is, wait, let's build up momentum and good faith before we get to the hard ones. Mm-hmm. The president and I sat down and talked about it, and he said, what do you think? And I said, man, just go for it. He goes, I agree. Let's just go for it. He said, if we can win this one, we can win them all. And I said, he said, you think Pete can do it? And I said, have you seen him? He hasn't backed down. All the stories that's coming about him, he's going right at it. His wife is walking the halls with him. I said, he's the perfect one to be the first one out the gate. Mm-hmm. And it set the tone. Literally, Hegseth's nomination set the tone for this administration, because he tackled it head on and said, bring it. Mm-hmm. Don't care. We're going to bring it. And this is the cast of characters that I'm putting around me. And all of them have a passion for change. And the media is losing their ever-loving mind over it because they can't wrap their hand around it. Because why? They're doing things different.
Talk to me a little bit about your evaluation of the Trump foreign policy in this second administration. To me, it seems pretty consistent. But there's all sorts of reporting that's out there, from all the different normal, characters that talk about internal fractiousness and disagreement and fighting. To be honest, I look at it and not to go back to the signal chats and stuff like that, but I actually looked at that as being a really intelligent conversation between people who had differences of opinion, but those differences were not so great as to indicate, some kind of fractiousness. It was more like, okay, this person's on this end and this person's on the other end. They're having a conversation. I mean, this is the kind of thing that my friend group, has around, dinner with a steak, kind of thing, about what we should do. What is your take on their approach to foreign policy?
We can talk about that signal chat, right? It showed that they were open enough to be able to talk like that with the vice president, with Tulsi, with the SecDath, with everybody that was in there making that consideration, and yet there was no discourse. It was just an opinion made, decision made, move forward. That's the way this administration operates. They operate in a very open, transparent way. But talk about his foreign approach. There's two different approaches, right? You have the story that the media talks about that's going on in the administration. I can tell you, I talk to the administration every single day. I talked to JD yesterday. I talked to the president yesterday. I talked to probably 2 or 3 different secretaries yesterday, and they all are walking different. They're all walking different directions, but they're all centrally located. They dispatch, right? They have this cabinet meeting, and then they go out their different ways and go take. But they're all working somewhat in the same direction. But what you really need to look at is the way he's being received around the world. The best thing that happened to Trump 45 versus Trump 47 is the world got a taste of 46. And they hated it. Yep. They realized the hole that is left when the United States doesn't lead.
Wandering away from the picture.
Yes. And when the United States isn't leading, what happens around the world? And so world leaders were clamoring for, quote, daddy to come back, right? And I met with the Secretary of NATO, had dinner with him the other night, and he was serious about the word. He said, we need a leader that's going to lead. Otherwise, you have a NATO body that you have a bunch of different fractions. We have one person that people look at and respect from a strength perspective, not fear. Strength. There's a different things. People fear Putin because he's not reliable. He talks about nuclear weapons all the time. People respect strength because you had the ability to do it, but you don't do it, but you do mean the clock. When you put a 60-day window on, that means at 12:01 on the 61st day, hell's going to rain down on you. When when this 50-day window, everybody's noticed what's happening that he put with Putin. Okay, something will happen within the next 51 days. So foreign affairs, we're in the best position we've ever been. I talk to foreign leaders all over the world on a weekly basis, and they are excited about America being back.
It does significantly. It feels like there's been a significant change in terms of their attitude toward the United States, particularly when it comes to them meeting their obligations in terms of all of these commitments that they've made in the past that they haven't lived up to. Talk to me a little bit about the situation in Oklahoma. You, when I went down there and visited
my
you,
wife
and your
just can't
lovely...
leave me alone. I try to get away from her. That's why we keep having 6 kids. I mean, it takes away all my time.
I loved visiting you and your lovely ranch down there. Obviously, though, there are challenges for Oklahoma in terms of economic, in terms of the burden of fentanyl and everything else that's happened over the past several years that has hit a lot of the American West and Midwest. Talk to me a little bit about the kind of improvements that you think people are going to be able to see under the policy changes that are happening. Not just the big beautiful bill and everything else that went along with that, but under the Trump administration that are going to affect the people of your state.
Well, let's just talk about blue states. We can talk about Oklahoma too, but I'm going to say all blue states. What's happened with blue states is people are leaving the woke movement and moving to red states like Oklahoma. So we're able to build things again in America. Now, so when the manufacturing companies are coming back, be it smelting plants or chip plants, or DoD facilities that are in the industry, or trinkets for Walmart shelves. They're not building those plants where they've typically built them in populated areas in the East Coast and West Coast, because it's the cost of business and the unreliable state to which they find themselves in. They're not wanting to go there. So Oklahoma has received an unbelievable amount of influx in manufacturing jobs, from pharmaceuticals to literally smelting plants, to the world's largest, the Northern Hemisphere's largest paper plant, because of the friendly environment it brings. Well, for a guy that lives out in the middle of nowhere, and then you go left and go another mile, and then you get to my place, you want an opportunity for your kids to be able to make a living there, and not just get by, not just scrape by, but make a living. The average household income in Oklahoma when I first got in office 12 years ago, was $37,000 household income. That has increased. That has increased to over 50,000 now. And people say, "Holy smokes!" Well, our cost of living versus the East Coast is much, much different, right?
Yeah.
But it's continuing to grow every single day, and this administration has put it on steroids. So what we're seeing is that people that was having to leave communities like Adair County, they're able to stay there because the investments is happening all around us, and so our kids don't have to leave home anymore. So our small towns that were dying, they're able to thrive again. Not necessarily because downtown's coming alive again. It's because they're able to drive 20 miles, which 20 miles in Oklahoma means 20 minutes.
Yeah.
20 miles here means anywhere between 45 minutes and 3 hours, right? But they're able to drive and come back and stay right there in their own communities. So it's huge. I mean, it's huge. But I got a question for you, okay?
Sure.
I'm starting in a dark room with a guy that has literally, it looks like an axe murderer tattoo on your forearm. You got to explain that one to me.
Oh, this is a chef's knife. This is my favorite chef's knife. It is this is a shun. A shun is a Japanese knife. Shun means season, so it has the meaning of food having its proper season, but also a proper season in life. So time to live, time to love, time to die, time to time
for everything, like in Ecclesiastics.
Exactly.
So, but you might want to explain that, because you look nice and gentle, just like a serial murderer, and then you have a knife down your forearm. I'm just saying that it's kind of like it made me uncomfortable.
This is what I use to make food for my daughters. So
do you still cook a lot?
Yeah, I do. In fact, actually, do you have a store, you have a shop that your family owns, a restaurant that is quite popular, and I was curious, do you play any role in the actual recipe making, or is that your wife? No. Is that somebody else?
So actually, we just sold that.
You just sold it?
Okay.
So
we had a couple.
It's very
restaurants.
popular.
Yeah, very popular.
Yeah.
We had a couple restaurants, and we sold them. We sold them a couple of steakhouses just recently. Best move we've ever made.
Really?
The restaurant business. God bless those that are in the restaurant business, but that hospitality business is full time with low margins.
Yep.
I'm used to companies that have higher margins. Working off of 2 and 3% margins is not where I think is time well spent, and scale is where that business is. But my wife is the cook. Now, what's interesting is all 3 of my boys are cooks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they can really cook. I'm surprised. They're all 3 in college, and they all 3 have, they all live on their own.
What do they make? What's their specialty?
Yesterday, my son was sending me pictures. He's making jambalaya, is that what it is? And some other stuff. I mean, and I didn't know he could make it. He's making hush puppies. He's sending me all kinds of pictures. I'm like, holy crap! But we are not vegetarians in my family.
No, and that's very clear.
Lots of protein.
Lots of protein in that household.
But my wife, they'll call my wife all the time and say, "Hey, how do you make this recipe? How do you make this way?" Because she's a phenomenal cook. I mean, she can cook. So all the recipes in the restaurant came from her from our travels around the world. So she would bring time, and she wanted to bring it to our hometown.
And then you come up here and you eat Spam.
I do. I eat Spam and eggs. That's the only thing I cook in my kitchen up here is Spam and eggs. This morning and last night I had cereal for dinner and breakfast. Yes.
Well,
and I'm good with it. I'm not complaining.
It's fine. Yeah, no. I want to ask you about the situation as it relates to women navigating these issues related to Title IX and sports.
Yeah.
I know it's something that you pay attention to from your own background and from your family.
Tulsi Gabbard and I started working on this back in 2018.
Yeah, you were ahead of the curve in terms of recognizing how significant it was going to be. What needs to happen in terms of a policy standpoint within the Congress to make sure that these moves that are currently being made in the admin, executive orders and the like, have some permanence to them and aren't just kind of a thing where, okay, the trans movement sort of within, sticking men and girl sports, it's just going to go underwater for a little while, and then we're going to come right back up when there's a Democrat back in the White House.
Yeah. So I'll go back to 2018. When I first brought this up, my wife was working with USA Girls Wrestling. I was working with USA Wrestling, and wrestling is a big sport.
And you should, you should share the level of wrestling activity that you have.
I got one boy that wrestles at Oklahoma, or two boys that wrestle at Oklahoma State, one that wrestles at University of Oklahoma, and then all but three of my girls wrestle. So in our family, you wrestle and like it or wrestle and don't, but choose your attitude. We're vertically challenged. So I am 5'9" and barely over 5'9", and so none of my kids are going to play basketball, and football's not going to pay for your college, so wrestling would. And my wife was a gymnast, so there you go. But when I started working on it, it was apparent that this was going to be an issue. At that time, it was just in track. It wasn't in any combative sports. But I got pushback from USA Wrestling at the time, and I was like, listen, you guys are going to have to take this on. This isn't an anti-LGBTQ. I'm not trying to make fun of it. I just can't remember all the letters.
Yeah.
This isn't a thing on them. Go live your life however you want to live it. But fair is fair. And then I have three girls that want to play sports too, and it became apparent, right? This is going to become an issue. And what I was saying is that you don't want DC to try to just fix this. The movement has to come from women's sports. Fortunately, Riley Gaines came out and she made the difference. She's the one that actually started saying, okay, it's okay for women to speak out about this, but it takes a backbone to do that. You saw how ridiculous it was that she was getting just lambasted.
The backlash was enormous in the early going. Yeah.
But that's what's going to take. It's the women in those sports are going to have to stand up more and more, and they're doing it more often now. But now the movement has to move to Washington, D.C. To actually have sound policy, not executive orders. They're going to have to come to D.C., just like any lobbying group, and help us lead the charge.
Well, one of the things that we've seen, and I've talked to Sage Steele about this on this program and to others as well, is that there is clearly a backlash to this, and one that is organic. It's not just Republicans, it's not just activists. It's clearly that there are parents who are very frustrated with seeing a situation where their daughter spends years devoting her life and their resources and everything else to pursuing a sport,
right.
And then they end up on a platform where there's a guy standing at the top and they're in second or third just because of the fact that this type of ridiculous policy is in place.
It's also what happens in the stands too, and I mean this sincerely, right? I go to wrestling tournaments almost every weekend. That's what I do, right? And I coach. I don't coach as much now because my kids are getting older, which is really difficult to sit in the stands and watch it. But
because you have opinions.
Yeah, I have opinions. Well, and I've coached them forever.
Yeah.
But to see my girls compete is different than seeing my boys compete. My boys compete, I could be pretty chill by it to some degree. My daughters, I'm on a different level. I don't know why, because I'm daddy, I guess, wanting to protect them.
I know.
but we've run into situations where there's been high school kids, boys that have transitioned and they're wrestling in girls, and that doesn't happen in Oklahoma. But when you're wrestling around in other states, it sometimes happens. And I mean, the stands, they get ugly. I mean, it gets really ugly.
Really?
And
what happens? I mean,
well, the fans start booing and start getting upset. Well, you think about a daddy, right? I'm a dad.
Yeah.
My daughter's wrestling against a boy, and God forbid that boy hurts my daughter.
Yeah.
And then I say something, and that boy's dad says something to me.
Yeah. That's a bad situation.
Zero chance that guy chooses food.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I'm talking about? Because I'm going to lose it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know I will. And because I'm protecting my daughter. That's a totally different story than road rage.
Totally.
Right. This is my daughter that had just got hurt because your son shouldn't be competing in a girl's sport. Yeah. That hasn't happened that I know of yet, but it could happen, and it will happen.
It
I
will.
guarantee you it will happen.
It will happen.
My daughter, when she was like 10 years old, she was wrestling in Missouri. And she's wrestling a boy, which is fine, right? They're younger at that time. And and I have, younger kids wrestling in male, female. Honestly, the girl actually has more advantage because they mature faster, right?
Yeah.
And but the dad hollered at his son because my daughter was winning and said, "Break her arm." I did not handle that well. Right? I didn't handle that well. I was in the corner, and I know parents.
This is one of those, and you may get this too from your wife. But my wife, whenever there's a situation that is like this, she's immediately paranoid about. Don't make a scene. There's somebody going to film you.
The problem is I was in the corner. I was coaching, and this guy happened to be about the distance away from this because it's a small mat from this room that we're in. And I did lose it. I jumped up, and other people heard it too. The ref stopped the match as soon as he said it, but I jumped up, and before I knew it, I was in the dad's face, the coach's face. Yeah. Once again, I didn't handle that right, but you just told your son to break my daughter's arm.
Yeah, you just told
because he was losing.
Yes.
And I informed him that his arm also was going to be broke, right? And my wife is up top because it was a gymnasium. She's filming
for those of you listening who don't know what Mark Wayne Mullin looks like, that was not an idle threat.
Yeah, so I jumped. I didn't handle it very good. I went to dad mode, and so my wife though she's upstairs filming it, looking down. She's on it was a gymnasium. And afterwards, she came over and she said, "Mark, we need to watch this. Your wife." And she showed it to me, and she says, "You're going to end up on CNN."
Yep.
And so from that
same thing with me.
So from that point on, I didn't coach without filming the same time.
That's actually smart. Yeah,
because I knew my
voice
voice was going to be on it.
Yep.
But that's what then when I go back to it and say that's going to happen and it will escalate if it doesn't. There's more than just girls competing against biological men. It's what happens with the fan base too.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets out of hand because it's unfair.
Yeah.
Especially in combative sports. You're not competing on a level playing field. This year, the in the 400, the 230th, I don't remember the actual number, but it was 230 something. Fastest male in high school was equal to the fastest female in high school in the nation.
Yeah.
Now that's in high school.
Yeah.
That's just in the 400 meters. You just that you can't. There just is a difference.
Yeah.
There is a difference.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you were early to this.
Tulsi was too. Tulsi Gabbard was there with me the whole time.
I know we have you've been generous with your time. I'm going to have to let you go, but last question for you. I think that when it comes to the situation that Republicans are in the U.S. Senate, having this narrow margin and everything else that comes with that, obviously you go and do a midterm cycle, and people think that the things are going to go against you. But it's also a situation where you've got a pretty good map. How hopeful are you that this is going to be a situation where Republicans can buck the historical trend and hold on to, you've been a House member yourself, but hold on to both bodies of Congress, just given how much that has import for how effective the president can be in the last 2 years of his administration?
If we continue to move forward, even though we're having our hiccups, we have challenging times, but we seem to always get over the hump. We have those that are going to vote no. You have your Rand Pauls and your Thomas Masseys that are they're going to oppose anything that comes out there. You have those challenges. That's okay. But we continue to deliver over and over for the American people. I don't know if you saw the interview that the co-founder of Home Depot had.
I did, yeah.
Okay, and he was an anti-Trumper. I mean, he was not, and he's saying that people in his stores have a pep in their step, that he's optimistic, that the country's optimistic, and you want to see a good snapshot of honestly America. That's at a Home Depot, that's at a Lowe's. I mean, really, you got the Gardners there, you got Subarus parked in the parking lot, and you got F-350s parked in the parking lot, right?
Yes, you do.
And there's a big difference between the people who drive those.
Definitely.
Yeah, but at the same time, he's got a good snapshot of what the American people are feeling. So I think we have a really good opportunity if we're able to continue to keep politics out of it. When you start thinking politics, you start putting decisions of a political mindset that's making you make political decisions over delivering for the American people, you're going to lose. You play politics. That's what's happening to the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party can't govern, and they can't get out of their way because their base, they're trying to pander to their base.
Are you scared of these socialists?
In which way?
Just in the sense that they seem to be on the rise within that party. Do you think that? I mean, are you concerned at all that that's going to become an actual? I mean, we've lived through the last 30 years of not having sort of something that was truly radical within the Democratic Party take reins.
I think that's a great question, Ben. If we would have lost the presidential election, it would have scared me to death because I think the country would have went totally socialism. We would have went down a European style government at that point. We would have been in trouble because the American people and younger people and the minorities of all different nationalities, they saw it and turned. That gave me so much hope for the American people that doesn't scare me anymore. But we can't let our eyes off it. Remember, Reagan dealt with this too.
Yeah.
Reagan and Hollywood had to fight this back underneath Jimmy Carter. It wasn't as relevant as it is now, but we did this before. We made this turn in the 80s, and we're making the turn today by people are waking up. You see that the Democrat Party is what was the word that I heard yesterday? The Democrat Party is more. Jeffrey Epstein is more popular than the Democrat Party. That's what, and I forget what Democrat said this. It was a Democrat analyst on CNN that said that, and he's not wrong because the America population isn't where the American campuses are at. And so it did scare me, but not anymore. I think it's awesome. We can make this turn though, Ben. I think we can hold on and keep it at the midterm if we don't allow the political year to get away from us. If we like we have happened so many times in Washington, D.C., you have 1 year to deliver, and then you have your political year to play politics.
Yep.
If the Republican Party starts playing politics after September, which usually happens October 1st, then we'll lose the midterms. If we continue to keep our foot down and continue to fight for the American people, then we'll have a good midterm.
You've reminded me of one of my favorite old Reagan quotes when he was governor. I had a nightmare last night. I dreamed I ran a laundromat in Berkeley. Mark Wayne Mullin, thank you so much for taking the time to join the Big Ben Show. Great to have you on.
Thanks.